you left-haired idiot. Get out of here. Who's this? I get it. Are you the saboteur that's fucking up our house? Trying to put me out of business? Thousands of dollars lost. You got that kind of money?
No. Yeah, sir. Bubba's got a girlfriend. 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 Bubba's
Way
got a
back into the distant past, when Pete was like 15, he joined a mail-in movie club, 11 days for pennies. And now cut to 2025, the movie club caught on to Pete's lie. And now they want to punish him, so they trapped him in a room with a bunch of movie tapes. Pete didn't want to pay for the movies he got in the 90s. He'll have to watch random horror tapes and tell us about gore and probably some rape. Now keep in mind, Pete didn't pick. They use random numbers and a long list. He's got to get through every movie, one each day for the time we can foresee. Helpful Snowman roll call. Anxiety, grouchiness, entropy, snow. If you're wondering why he did this song and other FAQ facts, just shut up and listen to this show, or fuck it, take a nice nap. It's Helpful Snowman Podoween 2025.
All right, everybody. Today's movie is The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2? I get confused about which ones have a the and which ones don't. I think this might have been one of the earlier series to screw around with to do remakes and stuff. Like, it's like, well, that is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is Texas, be like, oh, yeah, no one will be confused about that. Well, Texas Chainsaw 2. Turns out one of my least favorite of the classic slashery movies probably also has my least favorite sequel to those slashery movies. If I think about in that pantheon is sort of, Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, and Leatherface. And yeah, Leatherface for me is a distant fourth in that realm. If we wanted to throw Predator and Alien in there, he's even further down. So something weird is I ended up seeing the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre after I saw the, early 2000s, maybe 2003 remake with Jessica Biel. And as blasphemous as this may sound, I like the remake better. I had a better time with it. I just found it more enjoyable as a movie, I guess. The first movie, it's the original. And, basically it's a lot of yelling and walking around, and then there's more yelling. And it's just not that tense to me. It ends up, in my opinion, being kind of a slog. You know what I mean? You're just watching it and you're like, all right. I just wish everyone would get decapitated or not. You know what I mean? Like, can we just get to the part where everyone either gets killed if they're going to get killed or gets out of getting killed if that's what's going to happen? I mean, the arguments I hear in favor of the original are basically like it's a piece of cinema history and all that kind of stuff. And it's like Tobe Hooper made it on like a shoestring budget and so on. And like, I don't know, maybe I'm just not as interested in movies as I am in other forms of entertainment, like on that level. There's something when I read comics, right? I can read an old Spider-Man comic and it's like I can appreciate the first 100 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, but at the same time, if someone was like, should I read these? I'd be like, probably not. I'd be like, if you've read a lot of comics and you appreciate them, or like if you have a fondness for old comics and like a bombastic Stan Lee, then sure. Yeah, go for it. But if that's not your, I would not advise anyone to start there, right? I wouldn't be like, do that. But it seems like movie people are kind of like, I don't know, maybe because it's like, well, yeah, nobody's starting there. No one's first movie is Citizen Kane, right? No one's first horror movie is probably Texas Chainsaw. They've probably seen something else first. But I don't know. It's just, to me, it's like watching these things that are supposedly, it's part of film history and we wouldn't have X without Y or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't thrill me. You know what I mean? I think maybe I'm looking for something more immediate and visceral with movies. And like, if we're going to argue about watching films as an intellectual exercise, then I guess whatever. But I'm just not much of a films as intellectual exercise kind of guy. I mean, I like the movie Escape from LA. I'm stupid. Okay? So we don't need to argue. There's no argument coming from my camp of like, I like this movie and I'm smart. You know what I mean? You don't have to, you're not going to score any points by being like, you liking that movie makes you dumb, because I'm going to be like, yeah, you're probably right about that. You know what I mean? For the most part, if someone says that to me, I'm probably going to say like, yeah, that's pretty reasonable. I am stupid. So I don't know, like maybe I wouldn't argue that Texas Chainsaw, the original, is like an objectively bad movie. I'm just suspicious of the person who claims to like it. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, the way you're suspicious of someone who says the original Zelda is better than Link to the Past. I mean, come on, bro. Like, it does all the same things. Link to the Past does all the same things of the original Zelda, and it does it better. It's more dialed in. It's got a better balance. It's a more fun game, if you ask me. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not an objectively better game, but like the person who says it, I'm like, give me your reasons. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I do have a Texas Chainsaw story, though. It's possibly apocryphal because basically any story involving my dad is like, has to be taken with many grains of salt. So the story is like this. My dad, before I was born, had this Cadillac that he said was basically cursed. Like he had a bunch of stories about things in it not working and it going all wrong and stuff like that, including a time when he picked up my grandma from the airport and the windows all rolled up by themselves and then the car burst into flames, which I have no idea if that's true or not. But one of Dad's Cadillac stories takes place in Texas. He was living there for a while with my mom. And my dad, my mom, and my aunt were like driving cross country through Texas. And my dad pulls over for the night to get some sleep, and he just parks somewhere like in the middle of nowhere, basically. And my aunt wakes up and she's like, isn't this the kind of place where the Texas Chainsaw Massacre stuff happened? And according to my aunt, my dad like shot up, gets in the driver's seat and, just keeps rolling down the highway at a good clip after that for several hours. That woke him right up. So I guess that was a point of fear or whatever. I get, the movie obviously had an impact, right? But maybe too, like part of what I don't like about part of what has tainted Texas Chainsaw for me is like, this is definitely the movie that spawned a lot of, critical theory essays, which is what we called think pieces when I was in college. Just essays of like, what if we looked at this from a feminist perspective or from a racial lens or whatever. That's what they were called back when. It's the kind of proto-criticism stuff where like everything was a phallus if it was any shape other than, I don't know, what's the least phallic shape? It felt like if something was triangular, it was like, yeah, the pyramids, that's a phallus. And I'm like, I mean, I wouldn't say I've seen a lot of dicks, but if someone had a dick that I could describe as pyramidal, I would think that was concerning and would also not say that was typically a shape that I associated with, male genitals. But like, I don't know. I always disliked that kind of analysis because it's all like, see, she's escaping through the laundry that's hanging out to dry, which symbolizes the way women are trapped by domestic chores or something. And when you watch the movie, you're like, I mean, there's no fucking way that was anywhere remotely on the director's mind. You know what I mean? That just wasn't at all what was happening. It was like, oh, there's some laundry lines out here. If we put up some sheets, that would look pretty cool, right? I always fucking hated that about the English classes I took in college. Like, Shakespeare class was probably the worst offender in terms of like, oh, there's so many layers. Like, and then in reality, you're like, I don't know, man, this is a pretty good story about like a Jewish stereotype being bested by a trans person, but I don't think it really goes any deeper than, like a Monty Python sketch where a guy is dressed as a woman because, which, you could analyze and go deep into that, or you could just be like, I mean, they were probably like, well, we don't have any women here, so maybe someone should just dress up like a lady and do a ridiculous voice. Men, Women, and Chainsaws is the book. It's like a classic of the genre of deep analysis of trash culture, I guess I would call it. And I think that book actually coined the term final girl. I think that's where that all sort of began. But it's just not that interesting to me. Like, it just feels like when you get too interpretive, anything can be anything and no interpretation's off the table. And like, if everything is symbolism then and nothing's concrete, then like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, what's the guided journey via essay through some cockamamie shit that somebody just made up? Probably while stoned and staring at a poster of Betty Friedan, if anyone ever made a poster of Betty Friedan, which isn't impossible, but seems very unlikely. It would be awesome, though, if they just threw a Betty Friedan poster in among the bikini babes at Spencer Gifts. You know what I mean? People just be like, oh, maybe I should rethink my ways of buying a poster of a bikini babe. Anyway, it's a long way of saying I'm not a fan of the original Texas Chainsaw, but it gave me hope, right? Because I was like, well, maybe I'll like the sequel, because it seems like the opinions on the sequel are a little mixed at best. Probably fair to say that most people don't like it all that much and definitely like it far less than the original. And I thought maybe this would be like a Halloween 3 situation where like, if saying that I prefer the Texas Chainsaw remake is blasphemous, saying I preferred Halloween 3 to Halloween is like 1,000 times blasphemous, but it's to me, it's so much more interesting. It's the fault. It's not Halloween's fault, but it's like, well, that's the, proto slasher film. Right. And like, I've seen 50 of those. I haven't seen a single other movie where a madman who hates children for no particular reason goes and gets a bunch of shards off of Stonehenge and performs some weird ritual and then puts those shards into Halloween masks and then, convinces all the kids to buy Halloween masks. And then the shards are somehow activated by a TV commercial and then it turns kids' heads into bugs. There is exactly one movie where that happens. There's one. Anyway, so if like people who love original Halloween don't seem to love Halloween 3. And so I was like, well, maybe people who love the original don't love this. So maybe that's a good sign for me. If other people like the one I hate, maybe I'll like the one other people hate, right? And unfortunately, this is, to me, a lot like the first movie. Like, it's just a bunch of people yelling. The basic plot is that some lady is working at a radio station. She gets kidnapped by the same family of cannibals from the original and taken to a sort of closed down amusement mound. I don't know what else to call it. Like, it's not really an amusement park. It's just kind of a pile of rocks that has a cave of horrors built inside or something. An amusement cave under a pile of just shit. Which, I mean, all right, abandoned amusement park, right? That works. The sets are amazing. I did like looking at the movie at a lot of times. And there's like a shitty sideshow haunted house in a cave vibe to it that's awesome. So that part's 10 out of 10 for me. You know, it's a lot more interesting to look at than piece of shit house and then the woods in Texas, right? But, you know, after the lady's kidnapped, it's basically a movie of lady tries to escape thing, the movie. There is a B plot where Dennis Hopper, for some reason, sort of knows what's going on, I guess, and he buys a couple chainsaws and dual wields them and basically just goes into the amusement mound and wanders around, screaming and, you know, running chainsaws the whole time, but nobody seems to know he's there. And he also can't seem to find anyone else. I guess this is meant to be sort of a weird cavernous maze of tunnels or something, but it doesn't, I don't know. It's very confusing, but it's not confusing. It's just dumb. They just had this happening and they're like, well, we know we want Dennis Hopper to be crazy and come in with chainsaws and have a chainsaw fight. And, you know, the idea of having a hero who's as crazy as the villains, like, yeah, I'm into that. But it's just a very minor plot point that you could tell they didn't know what the fuck to do with it. There's a guy, an actor, Bill Moseley, he's been in a ton of horror and cult movie stuff, and he plays one of the main characters, and it's just intolerable. Like, he's screaming through the whole movie and he does this really annoying laugh the whole time. And like, it's insane. And it's a big effort performance, which I appreciate, but it's so grating. Like, it's so annoying that he becomes not scary because you're just annoyed by him so much. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of a similar movie where I can think of that happening, but it's like when he's first on screen, it's good. Like, he's crazy and threatening and weird, but he's not like so outrageous. But then like halfway through the movie, he's gone full cartoon, and it's not even like a tone thing for me. I don't mind that this movie has a messy collection of tones. It's just, I could not picture like watching this again, knowing how annoyed I'm about to be. You know what I mean? That's like the real terror of this movie, is just how annoying it is. So like, I don't know. I think this movie almost works as like if you made a Viewmaster reel of the movie and you looked at some of the sets and the lighting and stuff. Like, some of that is super cool. A version of this without sound and without bothering with the shred of plot would probably be better. So like, if a standard Viewmaster has a reel of 7 images, I'm going to rate this movie by saying I would probably look at all of them, but only once. And only if there was absolutely no sound to go along with them. And definitely not if I had somebody telling me like their critical theory about the movie while I looked at it. That would be the ultimate horror, is, you know, just listening to a critical theory essay throughout, a commentary track that's just that. Get a bunch of those fucking people in a room together and have them go nuts on it. That's the real terror. How many times during this month can I make that joke of like, that's the real horror?
Podoween 2025.